Number one, for my purpose, I want to know what that is. Number two, I want to find out what are the blockages in my life? What are the things that are stopping me from being the full version and being the greatest version of myself that actually will be creative, will be one that will create in this.
Awekenge, this is Mental Mythos, hosted by Asekho Toto.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Mental Mythos. I'm your host, Asekho Toto. And before we dive into today's incredible conversation, I have a small favor to ask. If you enjoy what you hear today, please take a moment to rate and review our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Your feedback not only helps us improve, but also helps others discover the valuable insights we share every week. And if you find today's episode particularly inspiring or insightful, don't forget to share it with your friends, family, or anyone you think could benefit from it. Thank you for your support. It truly means the world to us. Now, let's get back into our conversation.
You emphasize on transformative power of hope and purpose. How do these concepts play a role in maintaining and improve mental health?
So it's really important for us to all understand that we all have a purpose in life. You were born, you were made, you were uniquely designed, you were created to have a purpose and a meaning in this world. Because many of us, we're sitting here and we're saying, hey, ever asked that question? Why am I here? What does it mean for me to be able to come and wake up every day, every morning? What should I be doing with my life? How am I supposed to move about this world? How can I have a little more joy, more hope, and fulfillment in everything that I do? So purpose begins to be that area of our lives that provides us with the fuel and the passion to continue to move forward in a direction where we know we have a goal. We have something that we are living for every single day. And when we begin to take that into consideration in everything that we do, then it becomes something that we can apply to our lives. And so one of the things that I talk about insistently and constantly in the message is that when we take the time to understand what our general purpose is and our specific purpose. So your general purpose is your connection with the creator and just pleasing the creator. An example of that is if your creator is like what I call my creator, God, then as it says in scripture, God is love. Then every expression that I have is going to please my creator, which is love. Then there's also a specific purpose that everyone has. Everyone has this unique design and purpose within them that's uniquely theirs. And it's that gifting that you have the ability to do some things in this world that no one else is able to do as easily as you can. In many cases, you can get skills, you can get knowledge, and you can try and do those things. But where do you begin to align with your purpose, with who you are, and then be able to produce on that purpose is where I begin to talk about that alignment of making sure you're aligned with your creator. Then you begin to align with your gifting, when it comes easy to you. When someone is looking at you and they're talking to you, they'll validate and say, hey, you do that easily, whether it's you singing, speaking, teaching, whatever it is that you have a gifting for, you do that easily. And so you can identify parts and purposes of your life and how you're going to affect others in relationships by understanding that purpose.
I love the fact that you actually mentioned God, because one thing that I constantly hear from guests here on this podcast as we talk about the conversation that we're talking about, which is purpose, it's the hierarchy and having Jordan Peterson actually puts it well. And whereas he says that no matter what you do, there's always a hierarchy because, for example, as you said, that in terms of purpose, you're doing this because you want to please God. And it goes back to everyone. It's either they will worship Muhammad or Allah or God in any type of a higher being or higher power. There's always this thing of purpose of trying to fulfill that certain hierarchy. So, and when you said that you once in a while people that haven't found their purpose ask themselves that why am I here? And it's something that I found it difficult when I grew up, not knowing what I am meant to do, not knowing what is in store for me when I grow up, and going back to from when I was around 10 and go and looking back at now being 25, I never thought of seeing myself being a podcast host and being able to talk with people around the world, being able to have this type of conversation. It's something that really has changed my perspective when it comes to that. The reason why I'm bringing this up is purpose. Most of the time that I hear people do things in terms of your therapies, your psychotherapy, therapy, your doctors, your different people, different fields. And one thing they align their purpose with is trauma. Would you say that in terms of that, why 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 do people actually focus on trauma rather than, as you said, in terms of that hierarchy?
What's interesting when we begin to look at who we are, how our body is set up, our minds work, and one of the things I talk about in my book, Produce on Purpose, Experience Life Being the Real You, is you can look at us as all being tripart beings. That means that you have a body, you have a soul, and you have a spirit. In your soul is your mind, your will, and your emotions. One of the things that we can find in every single one of us is that we have memories. And so the memories that you have many times are just like in my vocation, I do programming or software programming. And so when you are able to program something, then that program runs over and over and over again. In fact, many of us that are on social media, right, those algorithms that are running, those programs that are running, they run consistently over and over again. Well, it's similar with our minds. And so, what we can find ourselves doing is that we have programmed ourselves with sometimes trauma, like you stated. Sometimes there are memories or things that we have gone through in our lives and we have accumulated through our past that every time we're in a particular situation or we feel a particular way, that it brings up that program. And you find yourself back in a cycle of particularly maybe reliving a trauma, reliving a situation, and maybe even reliving constraints that have been put on you. Many of us are living in this life just going back through the same programs that we had started with. And so trauma becomes one of those places where you have anchored a memory that you keep going back to. And so many people are, if they start to feel sad, for example, they'll be like, oh, I remember this is what caused me to feel sad before. And boom, you're in this cycle. And sometimes you may not even be as aware or conscious that you are bringing up a memory. You're just feeling that thing, and that feeling causes you to believe and say, well, this is the same thing. One of the things that I encourage, and this is going to be something that is helpful in life, is that we actually gain more when we learn how to surrender and release, or in many cases, call forgiveness. And when I talk about this, that means that you should be able to be in a space in your life where you can release those traumas, those memories. You may have to process them. You may have to go through the feeling and understand what they are. But when you're able to release them, then that puts you in a space of where you can live in this particular moment and see it for what it is, not bringing up a program of what happened to you in your past. And that's what happens to many of us, because even in relationships and different things that we could be in at particular times in our lives, we find ourselves in the same program. And that's where trauma, if it is not worked through, and if it's not actually looked at and processed, it can continue to come up in your life where you really have to confront it, begin to address those things, and then get to a place where you can release and let it go.
Mm, mm, mm. And you really said something that really, and it's something that I've seen a couple of times of myself. I would put myself there in terms of to surrender and releasing. And when you mentioned the word surrender, I in terms of I compared it with letting go. It's something that people that have dealt with trauma, it's something that's hard to do, because the reason why I'm bringing it up is the fact that sometimes we clinch on that pain of that you spoke about sadness of no, I don't want to let go. This type of feeling makes me. It's something that I'm comfortable with, and I would say to have made it my new normal of if I go if I let it go, I won't and I would suffer again. I would not know how to cope, and again it goes back to a quote, a scene that I saw on Doctor Strange, whereas Doctor Strange didn't want to let go of the mentality that he had in terms of the scientific, no, in the scientific way, whereas being a doctor in terms of when it comes to healing. So the Buddha, the female Buddha, where she said that you need to let go and surrender. And he in some sense, sometimes we think that everything has logic in terms of if I'm doing this, what would happen next? We have this thing of no, I need to have that logic. If I'm doing this, what is the alternative? And we in terms of putting trust, and goes back as a Christian, and also I'm a Christian, of putting hope, that having that faith within God of if I let go, I know God will take care of this. And it's quite something that people, one would say, find it difficult to do. So I just wanna get into self-discovery. Self-discovery is really important, and it's something that it's I would say it's hard to get into, and that's why I brought up purpose, because self-discovery is part of, I would say, the way of the path of figuring out your own purpose. What is your purpose? So how can individuals balance self-discovery with demands of their daily lives?
Yeah, so self-discovery, it has to be something that you are intentionally looking to do. And this is where I'm going to say in life, whether you are conscious of what's happening to you or not, there it's or things are going to continue to happen in your life and be happening. My encouragement to everyone is why not be intentional about making sure that you are moving in a direction that is not only pleasing to what's going on for you and that serves you, but serves everyone around you. We all need the gifting, we all need the creativity from everyone in this world, to be able to provide. So we were all created to be here and be creators, actually creating something, not just following the script that somebody else has provided to us. And when I describe that, that means that you're going to start to look at yourself. Number one, to do self discovery, you're going to say, okay, what is it? Number one, for my purpose, I want to know what that is. Number two, I want to find out what are the blockages in my life? What are the things that are stopping me from being the full version and being the greatest version of myself that actually will be creative, will be one that will create in this world and be able to move in the direction that we need to. So, in order to balance your self discovery along with your movement of what you're doing, you can begin to take the time, number one, with self discipline and also with the time that it takes to practice. I learned a long time ago when I was in younger that I used to play basketball and I played baseball. And one of the things that I found is that the more that I practiced, the easier that skill or that thing that I needed to do became, whether it was dribbling my basketball with my right and left hands, being able to cross over, whatever it was, shoot the basketball or throw the basketball, hit a baseball, whatever it was, I had to practice at that. It's the same way with self discovery. We need to make sure we set aside time to practice and to continue to provide the disciplines on a consistent basis. One of the things that we will discover in that process is that if you put that as a priority in your life will begin to change by leaps and bounds. So my encouragement is maybe right now you feel like you don't have the time to begin to do the process of self-discovery. All I ask is that you be consistent. So take a minute today, take 5 minutes the next day. Take it slow, but do it every single day and try to increase the time that you take to do self-discovery. And when I talk about self-discovery, that is the spaces where what am I good at? Why am I here? What are the constraints right now? What are the social norms? What are some of the programs that I keep going back to, the traumas that I'm working on? Do I need help from a professional like a therapist or a pastor or someone that I need to talk to about what's been going on in my life? You will then, because if you can become free, then you can pursue being creative and understanding that many of the blockages, many of the things that you may have felt victim to, you're not a victim. You are actually a victor when you begin to be intentional about your self discovery.
And I would like to just emphasize on what just you said in terms of play of not being a victim. And as much as sometimes I believe that we are quite nice when it comes to this conversation of playing the victim. People playing the victim and try by any means to encourage them, no, don't play the victim and being soft towards them. But the truth is, we need to be harsh when it comes to that. I agree that you have went through this certain trauma. Yes, I agree. But at the same time, it's not about what you experienced, but it's how you respond to it, because it really matters, because I believe in perspectives. And in this year has shown me that perspective is very important when it comes to purpose, when it comes to self-discovery, when it comes to self-growth, personal growth. And for you playing the victim card and also wanting to, in a way, have these things improving your mental well-being, improving your self-worth, or telling yourself that you are worth it, and trying to mix those things, it won't work out, because you have to choose one. It's either you become you change from, as you said, from victim to victor, or you stay on that victim card. And I feel like that's one of the things that I would say that I am against. And you mentioned discipline, and again, it took me back to a scene from BoJack Horseman show, BoJack, whereas he was running a up a hill where in the middle, I think in the middle where he felt tired, and the other guy said that it gets easier, and it's something that we don't actually. It's something that also we mentioned, and it's get easier when the more you practice, the more you're getting better with it. But the thing is that with that we have this thing which is as discipline. Disciplines it's hard. I don't wanna lie, and it's something that takes time to get used to. Not only discipline but consistency, because you can't have discipline without having consistency. It's something that I've seen, and I like to take it in the perspective of mental well-being. Let's say in terms of self-esteem, when you're telling yourself that at the mirror every day that you're doing great, you are great, you are great, you are great, and you someone says that you are not great. Once we end up, as much as we did all the work that we've been telling ourselves, having that consistency, having that thing of, no, I am great, I'm great. One person say that you are not great. How do you respond to that? How did you create that self-confidence, that self-worth that says that no matter what people say about me, I don't believe it, but I believe what I say about myself.
Intentionality will begin to change this. And one of the things I want to share is that many times what we find ourselves doing is very similar to what you were talking about with Dr. Strange, for example. We look at the external things that are happening in our lives. One of the things that you may be doing is you're looking at your bank account and externally at what happened. That's something in the past. If you look outside and you see what's going on, that's again something from the past. If you begin to look at how your relationships are, it's because of buildup of things that you've done in the past. It is not actually truly your reality at this moment now and what you have. One of the things that science tells us, and science also works with what we're talking about, but science only works off of observation. It's only what I can see or what I can measure that is what I'm going by. So, an example like you're talking about with self esteem, if someone is having a self esteem problem and someone comes to them and says something and changes their mind, that means that deep down inside, you still have a need for somebody to validate who you really are. What I am trying to encourage everyone to do is to begin to find your purpose and begin to work from the inside out, because what's in you, you already have. Very similar to when I look outside and I see the trees, it started off as a seed. That seed had that entire tree within it all of the time. It just took time for that tree to be put into the ground, for it to be nurtured, for it to be watered, and for it to grow. Same thing with us. We've got something on the inside of each of us. And when you begin to understand that you're going to take the time, and so you might do affirmations as you talked about earlier, you might say, hey, I am this, but you have to believe and understand why you're here, what you're about, what you're supposed to be doing. And when you begin to know that, and so initially you may not know that. And what I am encouraging everyone to do is initially find the people that are going to be around you that will support you without judging you. Let me repeat that. They're going to support you without judging you, meaning that if you have a dream, you have something that you know you're supposed to do, these are the people that are going to listen to you and support you regardless of how outlandish the dream may sound or how outlandish that purpose might be. They're going to support you. Those other people in this world that don't understand why you're here and what you're about, I encourage you to put a boundary up and do not share those things with those people until you are ready and you have the results that are going on. I promise you this. When they start seeing the results, there will be no question that you were born for this particular thing that you're doing. So when it comes to self-esteem, you do have to take the time to work from the inside out versus the outside in. And my encouragement to anyone is that when it comes to this, it does take time if you have been programmed to think that you need validation from somebody else. You don't need validation from anyone else to be who you are.
Hearing you speak actually intrigued me something on me, and something being able to be able to present all this positivity and able to have I would say that one thing that first I just wanna touch on this. You mentioned that it takes time, and funny enough that previously an hour ago I had a guest, whereas we actually explored the human potential of not realizing that as humans we have a lot of potential, and in a way, but at the same time, in order for you to grow, you need to grow with others, being with others, recognizing that there are things that you can learn from other people. The thing of perspective of being open to different perspectives. And going back to the initial question that I was going to ask you is the fact that hearing you being positive about this and hearing you with this information when it comes to mental health, when it comes to self discovery, and how would you say that looking back, were you always like this in terms of having that faith, having that intentionality of trying to improve yourself?
I've always wanted to improve myself, but I will not say that I've always had the ability to understand the need to not have validation or recognize that I was actually looking for validation. So what I will share is that as the years have gone on, and I've understood more of who I am, what my gifting is. And so when I was younger, I will say that I had something to prove to myself because I wanted to prove that number one, I could take care of myself. Number two, that I got married, I could take care of a wife, I could have children, I could get a home, I could, I could do these things, I could get a job, and I could live, and I could do this on my own. I had something to prove to myself, not just trying to prove it to others. And I believe that the driving force of many people is that they're trying to prove something to themselves. But what if you begin to acquire all of these things of this world? And I will promise to anyone that anything in this world that you desire is temporary. I don't care if it's money. I don't care if it's homes. I don't care if it's a great job, if it's a great following. It's all temporary because one of the things that you have to remember is what you were born with is eternal. It's going to always be there. So, regardless of what seasons of life you go through, so I've been through enough seasons now to understand that there are different seasons when we sometimes are trying to prove something to ourselves. Then you grow into a place where you understand you have nothing to prove to anyone. In fact, you have the ability within yourself and understanding that you have a purpose and your meaning to be able to affect everyone that you meet, no matter who they are, by being authentically who you were born to be. I found myself conforming at a younger age. And in fact, in my book, I talk about this. At the earliest time I can remember conforming to the world is when I went to kindergarten. And the first day of kindergarten, I was told to go sit on a line, crisscross applesauce, with your legs crossed, and sit on that line. And if you got up, then you were going to be punished. Well, this is a starting of teaching people to be conformed to a particular way. Instead, maybe the better way that I work would be to get up and walk around. And another person may be to sit down. But what is it that is innately yours that you should be able to do? And so that's where we start to talk about there are a lot of social norms, a lot of conformity that has been brought to us through education, through different things, because that was a way to provide semblance of control, a semblance of somewhat of order. But when it comes down to you being who you really are, is that something that you should, sometimes it dims your light. It doesn't allow you to shine as bright as you can. And so when you do these things consistently, I didn't know that when I was younger, but as time has gone on and I've seeked the specifics of this world to say, I want to know, what was I put here for? How can I really touch people? How can I be one that can help someone in their times of trouble? And maybe it is part of my gifting to be able to teach others information in a way that is digestible and allows them to grow. Because I may plant a seed that will change your life forever. And I understand that now, but I did not understand that years ago. It took time to allow that to grow.
And when you spoke about conforming to social norms, I going back to a conversation that I had with Dr. Allen, where he said that he he broke his neck when he was around 12, and he was told that he will be crippled forever. And after 3 years, he recovered. And it goes again to the something that I always made sure that I emphasize the fact that some people want us to have, in terms of like, abide by social norms, and think that that thing that they are saying is true, not the thing that you are thinking of. And that creates that, I would say, self-doubt, in a way of not believing what you're thinking. Probably this thing's wrong, and this thing that I'm thinking is wrong. This thing that I'm feeling is wrong. You see, and in terms of breaking down from those norms, and it's something that, how ironic, because 2 hours ago I was on Instagram scrolling on some reels, and as a Christian, and I forgot the name of the lady, where she said that you can do everything in this world, but when you start being Christian, you will be judged everywhere. And it's something that I believe that I needed to just put it out there in terms of that. And it's something that I feel like people uh, people struggle with, in terms of having that sense of purpose, of not realizing that, as I mentioned earlier, the hierarchy in terms of finding your purpose, knowing what you want, and also asking the question, why am I here? So with those words, I would like to say thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your knowledge with us, and being able to have such interacting conversation. And it actually, in all honesty, it was quite interesting. And looking back to breaking the norms in terms of surrounding, and something that, as I've mentioned earlier, it's something that we find difficult in. And one thing that I'm quite sure that, for our conversation, what that we emphasize was purpose, for producing on your purpose, definitely. And I really appreciate, and again, I really appreciate you for being here, and with your time and knowledge, the expertise that you shared with us today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was great to be on here, and appreciate you for having me on. And I'll leave a last word for everyone. This word is this: I can take a look outside and I can use a thermometer. The thermometer is very good at telling me what degrees it is outside and how hot it is. The thermometer is good at reading what's going on the outside. But I'm going to encourage you, if you could either be a thermometer or a thermostat, that you be a thermostat. And you be a thermostat in your life, because no matter what happens, you can change the temperature of your life. You can change what's going on in your life. The thermometer just tells me what's going on. You be a thermostat, so that when you walk into a room, that your light will shine. When you smile, everybody else will begin to smile. When you show up and you tell them who you are, then you will begin to change everybody's perspective. And I encourage that to everyone that's listening. I appreciate you having me on, and hopefully that someone will capture and get something out of this that will help transform and change their lives.
Definitely. Before I let you go, can you please share us? Can you please on Parchment, please send me your social handle so that when the episode is out, I can share it, and also your website so that I can add it on the description below.
Yeah, man. You can find me at my website, which is www.randyatkinsjr.com. And on there are my social handles, which is Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Produce on Purpose, Experience Life Being the Real You is the name of the book. And I also have a podcast called Produce on Purpose, where you can find additional information and more uplifting conversations just like we had today. So www.randyatkinsjr.com. And for anyone who's listening to this podcast, I'll be willing to provide a 25% discount off of a signed copy of my book if they go to my website and they put in a coupon code INSPIRED. If they put that in, then they will get 25% off.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.